I want to get people excited about their own history, and even if you can't travel outside of your own city, there's so much history that's within your own. I always say that California is our backyard. Even within your own city, there's so much history that you might not even know until you seek it out, especially if you're driving somewhere, you see a historical plaque or your local historical society, just go in there, check out the plaque, and then you might be amazed by the type of history that was like right in your own, just around your backyard.
Yeah.
Welcome to the My SGV podcast. Our mission is to capture and share the stories of the people of the San Gabriel Valley. We believe our diversity is what makes the SGV great. And no matter where you're from in the San Gabriel Valley, you will feel welcome.
All right, SGVers, welcome back to another episode of the My SGV podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for spending this time with us. We do appreciate it. If you're new here, we bring you the stories of the people of the San Gabriel Valley. And if you're a returning listener, sit back, relax, and get ready for another episode. Scott, I'm aware that you enjoy, or you often read biographies of famous people in history. You enjoy them, but you also get something from them. What are you getting when you're these are not, in my opinion, not leisurely type of reading, but why do you seek them out?
Yeah, well, I love to read about people, what made them what they are, what formed them, what were the times like when they lived. That's one kind of history I love, is biography. Another type is a more contemporary, sort of tangible kind of history. Visiting places that mean something and that have meant something. But it all started when I was a kid, and I would love when my Aunt Mickey and Uncle John would come over and talk about their childhood and growing up in their big family. I would love going to my father's hometown, Oregon City, Oregon, and just walk around town with him and hear the stories of, how he would, at this garage, they built a car like this with his friends, and where they would go, and just seeing these places, reliving his life. It was, a very tangible kind of history. So I just love history of all kinds, but something about contemporary, tangible history, if that makes sense, is probably most in my soul, I would say.
Sure. Yeah. Well, when we first started the show, one of the names that came up as like a descriptor of what we were doing was Huell Howser. And I watched Huell Howser all the time, California Gold, and he would go to these various places, and they were more contemporary, but he was going there and he was telling the history of these places, and I was learning about it, and I was really fascinated by that. And now all those episodes are sort of like, they are history, right? Because they're sort of telling the story of this place in this time. And when I came across our guest today online on social media, I was like, wow, that's really cool. He's on location. He's telling these stories, these unique stories about this place, and I was really drawn to it. So, but before we get to our guest, I want to make sure that we thank Paris Baguette, San Gabriel. These are really amazing pastries. Every time I go in there, I walk around, I'm like, wow, I would like to try, all of them if I could, but they look so delicious and tasty, and I wish that I could actually taste them. I was there last week to do some work, and Jason was there, and he always greets me, and it's a really warm feeling there. I love, doing some work. There's Wi-Fi. I sit in that glass room, so it's really a great place. So thank you to Paris Baguettes and Gabriel. Definitely check them out. Thank you for sponsoring the refreshments and delicious pastries for the show. Well, let me introduce our guest. He's one of few, I would say, that is coming on the show who's watched or listened to a lot of our episodes, and he's telling us about the format. And I was, just really giddy that there's somebody out there who is, a real fan of the show. So let me introduce him. His name is Javier Servin, aka Huell Howser, and he's a historian about here in the San Gabriel Valley. Javier, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It is it's crazy to be here because I seeing it on YouTube and then being here, it's a little surreal.
Really?
Wow, that's a nice sort of thought.
I mean, especially too because I see your billboards on the freeway too.
Oh, you do.
The fact that I'm like, hey, I'm going to be on Scott's podcast, and I pointed out to my wife every time we pass by one of your billboards.
Okay, we're gonna take one billboard and put you on it.
Is it the one on the 605 going south?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, we've seen on the 605 going south, probably from like Donut Man in like Glendora or something like that.
Oh yeah,
I think that's where I've seen it. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Well, Javier, the show is called the My SGV Podcast. What's your connection to the San Gabriel Valley?
So I did a brief stint in the Department of Animal Care and Control. So I worked at the Baldwin Park location right off of Ramona. And then when I was an EMT for a bit, my company was based out of Inglewood, but we had contracts in the San Gabriel Valley. So we had contracts with dialysis centers and skilled nursing facilities in Hacienda Heights and San Gabriel and Monterey Park. So I was up and down the San Gabriel Valley doing that. And then now doing the history thing, I've covered maybe like 7 or 8 places in the San Gabriel Valley. And I also like to try a lot of food. So I'm always out over here trying some new places to eat.
I see. So you are a historian, and you said that you're comfortable now with that title. What in your early life, put you on that path?
So my history teachers, in the fourth grade in California, you learn California history. That's like the thing. Usually people did the project on the California missions. And that was actually the first time I ever learned that we had indigenous people in California. It sounds kind of dumb, but as a fourth grader, I only knew about indigenous people through the lens of like the Mayflower and Thanksgiving and the Trail of Tears. And so once I did that project, I learned about the Chumash people, and I was so then that kind of sparked an interest in learning more about California history. And then of course, watching Huell Howser with my dad, he would go to all these different places, and they were not necessarily like history places. Sometimes they were restaurants and things like that, but he always sort of got down to the core of the history of that place, that was the thing that kind of sparked that interest. And then it kept going as I got older, and actually went to college at UC Merced, which is in the Central Valley, and I got a bachelor's degree in history, and with an emphasis on California history. So that's how that happened.
Mm. Can you go back to the mission project? Because when you said that, it just took me back. Like I remember. So was it that you had to choose a mission and then you had to sort of build a 3D model? Was that how it was? Yeah,
I picked Mission Santa Barbara as my mission, and I think I made it out of like popsicle sticks and things like that. But just researching it and like I said, learning about the Chumash people, like I was fascinated, especially with the fact that like acorns are poisonous. Like if you try to eat an acorn, it's poisonous. But they figured out a way how to grind acorns and then wash that. I forget what chemical it is. It's in acorns that is toxic, and they figured out a way to wash that toxin off of the acorns, and then from that they would make, like porridge and things like that using that the acorn mush that they would make, and that fascinated me as a kid. So that sparked that interest in learning more about California, because there was so much history that I was unaware of here in California.
So you would watch Huell Howser episodes with your father, you said.
Yeah.
And what about the history was interesting to you, or like what did you find fascinating about it?
I just like seeing these places, learning the history of like a restaurant, someplace like Langer's, and then having the person that he was interviewing talk about the history and how the restaurant was founded and how it's managed to survive all these decades later. And then you can go and still have a sandwich there. Like that's one of the things I love about history is finding a place that you can still visit, because history is often thought in like this abstract form that it's like, oh, it's something that happened such a long time ago. But, you can have something that connects you to the past, and that kind of brings that history alive, when it's something tangible.
Are there any particular shows of his that still resonate that you have never forgotten about?
My favorite episode from his is the Newberry Springs episode, and that's because it was total chaos. Like Huell was notorious for he just wanted to go and shoot. He would make very minimal edits, and he was just kind of fly by the seat of his pants kind of thing. And this episode, he discovered there was a self-driving tour of Newberry Springs, and he printed out the directions online, and he went with Louis, and they went to go film, and every stop along the way that he wanted to visit was closed. It wasn't where he said it was going to be. He ended up at this place called the Baghdad Cafe, and it was just chaos. And you can see him trying to salvage the show. So that one's really funny. That was always funny to me. But the other one that really stands out to me is the Golden Gate Bridge episode he did, where he interviewed the painters of the Golden Gate Bridge, and he got to go up to the top of the Golden Gate Bridge and, you know, sort of look out onto the bay from on top of the bridge. Like, that was really cool.
Do you still watch his shows on YouTube, or are they available?
So during the pandemic, just like a lot of people, you know, I picked up, you know, different things to kind of pass the time. And I discovered that Chapman University has the entire Huell Howser archives online. So I have watched every single episode of every single show that Huell Howser ever did.
Really? How many were there? And when did it, what was the period of time it ran?
If I remember correctly, he started doing a thing called Video Log, which was like a 10-minute thing on the public television station. And that was like in the 80s. And then it ran basically until he passed away. I think he passed away 10 or 11 years ago. I think he retired a little bit before that because he had cancer. But yeah, just something like California's Gold, I think, has something like 400 episodes. And then there's a show called Road Trip with Huell Howser, and that one has like 300 episodes. And then even like obscure shows, like he had one called The Bench. And, you know, Huell had this reputation for being able to talk to anybody, and he wanted to put that to the test. So he would literally go to some bench somewhere in a park and just try to stand there and interview people as they were coming by.
Oh, yeah.
But it didn't really work because most of the time he was there in the middle of a week. People are trying to grab, you know, they're doing their lunch break. They're trying to just kind of rest, and people didn't want to stop and talk to him. So that's why that show only has like 10 episodes, because it was very short-lived.
My memory of Huell is like he was a very large, tall individual, almost very imposing looking, but he just had this very gentle way of speaking, and he was so enthusiastic about his curiosity and interest in learning about things. Is that also your memory of him?
Absolutely. Like, I remember there's a show he did where he interviewed a lady in Long Beach that used to make art out of lint, like dryer lint. And he made that seem fascinating. You know, it was like 30 minutes of him being like, wow, and you're mean to tell me that all this is dryer lint? You know, like, and the lady's like, yeah. He's like, wow. You know, it's like he was just amazed by everything that, you know, that he covered. And you're right. Like he I think he was a Marine. So, you know, so he was a very tall, imposing kind of figure, but his accent, his drawl, and his kind of like aw shucks kind of personality kind of definitely made him very likable.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that fascinated me about you when I first spoke to you online was like the depth that you were willing to research. Like, you don't just you know, Google or go off the whim. Like, you really wanted to get it right. And so you had your curiosity with the show and your dad, and what else sparked your curiosity for history?
I had some really great teachers in high school that would entertain questions that I had about something. Because, you know, a lot of times teachers just kind of go off their lesson plan and here's a test. And I had a teacher that I would actually hang out with at lunchtime, and I would ask him things. And what he would tell me is like, I'm not going to tell you, go find it. Go research it on your own, you know, go to the library. So he's the one that encouraged me to if I had a question about a particular subject or something, he told me to go seek it out. And that was in the days of like card catalogs and stuff like that still, you know, so I was right in between card catalogs and the internet, you know, so I'd spend a lot of times in the library trying to find things. And then after I found something, I would come back and then we would have discussions about it, and he would ask me my opinion on the subject. So that really kind of spurned that desire to like seek out information and research.
Wow.
And you learned English from Huell Howser, is that right? I mean, from watching the show.
I learned English from watching PBS. So
okay.
So Sesame Street, Huell Howser, Yan Can Cook, you know, Reading Rainbow, like all of that stuff. Yeah, definitely.
Wow.
That's all those shows bring back so many memories. Yeah. So it sounds like this teacher was pretty influential in your path in life.
Absolutely. Like I was lucky enough to have him for 3 years out of the 4 years I was in high school.
That's sort of an unusual relationship, right? That a teacher would invest like so much. It sounds like a lot of time outside of the normal classroom in an individual.
Yeah, I've been very lucky that I've had teachers like that. Like my favorite teacher of all time was my 5th grade teacher. Her name was Mrs. Thomas. And yeah, even after I left, I would come back and visit her. And I made it out to her retirement party when she retired. So, that was cool. And then my history teacher, Mr. Wolf, who's the person that I would bug during lunch. But he could see that I was curious, and I guess he saw, something that he's like, you know what, I can turn this guy into a historian. He seems to be interested in this kind of stuff. And then in college, I had 2 great professors as well that I also had relationships outside of the classroom, where I would go visit them in office hours just to talk, discuss different things. My advisor for my thesis was really great. So yeah, I've just been very, very lucky to have a lot of really great teachers and professors.
Mm. I was greatly influenced by teachers and professors as well. And, for young people that may be listening, those that maybe still are in school, college, high school, I would really impress upon them, the value of a teacher who really cares, because a lot of teachers really care. And they can, take you places that, others can't, And, it just sounds like you were lucky that you recognized that there were teachers that recognized you and developed that relationship.
Absolutely. I was very fortunate.
What kind of history most appeals to you?
So there's one thing that I'm obsessed with, and it's like one of my biggest obsessions is programmatic architecture. So like the history of these buildings that used to look like the Brown Derby, it's like a big, hat, or there's a tamale building in East LA that, looks like, giant tamale. Like I'm obsessed with that aspect just because I wish I could travel back in time and drive down the street and see all these, really cool looking buildings. But but what I like about history is learning how we ended up with this thing, right? So A had to happen for B to happen to C to D to be able to end up with what you have now, and that's why I like going to places. That's why all my videos, there's something tangible, sort of what you said about tangible history, is that you can see these buildings, you can taste the French dip sandwich, you can listen to the music, there's something tangible, because like I said, history is very abstract. Sometimes people just say, oh, well, that thing happened such a long time ago, but there's things that happened 100 years ago, 50 years ago that are still with us today.
Are you mainly focused on California?
Absolutely. Like I in the spirit of Huell Howser, that's why I call myself Fu Howser, is just focused on California. My channel is called Californiography, so it's all about California. Most of my videos have taken place here in Southern California because I'm based out of Southern California, but I would love to get all over the state, and it's just because I want to get people excited about their own history, and even if you can't travel outside of your own city, there's so much history that's within your own. I always say that California is our backyard, and even within your own city, there's so much history that you might not even know until you seek it out. Especially like if you're driving somewhere, you see a historical plaque, mm-hmm. or your local historical society. Just go in there, check out the plaque, and then you might be amazed by the type of history that was like right in your own. Just around your backyard.
Yeah, just walking around the streets and just observing things. Like you say, a plaque, go over and read it, and you may be surprised. Yeah. Pasadena is a great city for discovering history.
Oh, absolutely. There's a coffee shop that I like up there that I visit whenever I'm there, and it's on this little tiny street that has like little alleys and stuff. And there's plaques everywhere tell you what used to be here. What
is that in Old Pasadena?
I think it might be Old Pasadena. Yeah, there's like I like it because they have plaques on the side of every building, so it kind of tells you what used to be here, and that's pretty cool. And then of course the Pasadena Historical Society is great. I've been there a couple times, and they always have really great exhibits there.
Where are you sort of based? Are you in the San Gabriel Valley, or do you work from somewhere else?
So I like to say I'm San Gabriel Valley adjacent. I live in Whittier, but I'm right at the base of the Puente Hills. So I just go over the Puente Hills and I'm in Hacienda Heights. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I live in Whittier. I'm based out of Whittier. luckily right now my job, I'm hybrid, so I work a lot of days at home. But then like on the weekends, my wife is the Louis to my Huell Howser. She's my camera person, so she goes out with me to all these places, and she's actually the one that spurred me to do this, because whenever we be driving, I say, hey, you see that building over there? That used to be such and such, and hey, you saw this? It used to be this. And she would tell me, like, don't tell me. She's like, go and tell other people. And she's the one that got me to get on TikTok, which is how I got started making these videos.
What are some recent ones you've done that you've really enjoyed?
So I recently did one on the Randy's Donuts, the history of Randy's Donuts. And Randy's Donuts actually started off as Randy's was actually the second location of a chain called the Big Donut Drive-In, and in its heyday it had 10 locations. Now there's only 5 that still exist in some form or another. So I really enjoyed digging into the history of that and actually visiting the places that are still standing.
Did you go to the one in Pasadena? Is that still open on Lake, a Randy's Donut?
No, so I saw that the Randy's Donut. It's kind of funny because Randy's Donuts used to be just the one in Inglewood, and now it's a whole chain. Yeah, and they even have stores in South Korea.
Oh, they do?
For the Philippines and Saudi Arabia. Yeah, like the person who took over Randy's ran with it, and so now they're all over the place. Yeah.
Now, is there anything special about their donuts, or are they just known for the big donut in Inglewood?
Yeah, that's. I mean, the donuts are good. I enjoy them, but yeah, that was the whole thing of what made Randy's famous was that. So like I said, it was the Big Donut Drive-In. At some point, the Russell Wendell, who was the founder of it, he sold all the locations. This guy named Robert Escal bought it, and then he ended up selling that place to another guy, and they renamed it to Randy's Donuts and Sandwiches, and then his cousins ended up buying it, and they're the ones that made it available for filming. So that's kind of what made Randy's into like this sort of like pop, culture icon, because it started coming out in different movies and music videos and all things like that. So that's what kind of made it grow into like the Randy's that we know today. And it's because the two brothers, the Weintraub brothers, made it available for filming.
How about Roscoe's?
Oh, Roscoe's is on my list of places, definitely. I enjoy going to Roscoe's, although afterwards I can't do anything. I have to take a nap. Nothing's getting done after I go to Roscoe's.
Yeah, right. What do you like to eat at Roscoe's?
I forget the name of the special, but it's I like getting the dark meat with the waffle, and I get a side of gravy, and I'll just cut a piece of waffle, cut a piece of chicken, and I just dunk it all in the gravy.
Yeah.
We were sharing a story earlier about the origins of the hat, and I had never heard this before. So I said, "Oh, the hat. The original one is on Garfield, right?" And then you can.
Oh yeah, no. Say, like, I mean, I'm repping the hat.
Oh,
I got a hat shirt because I knew I was coming here. So I was telling Russell that I want to do a history of the hat, but it's really hard to find like resources on the history of it. Like Russell said, I don't like to use Wikipedia as a jumping off point to find references, but I don't use it as a source. And on Wikipedia, it says that the original location was actually in Boyle Heights, that the first hat was in Boyle Heights on Soto and Cesar Chavez. And then the family members of the founder opened the location that's in Alhambra that's now considered the first one. Oh. And then the other one closed and eventually became the King Taco. I haven't found any sources that verify that, but now it's going to be an obsession of mine to try to figure out what the actual story is of the hat.
Has the hat stayed strong over the years, or is it expanding, declining, or pretty much the same?
No, they seem to be they've grown, and they seem to be very careful of their growth. I know they have a handful of locations. The people that own it now, I think they took over it sometime in the 90s, if I remembering correctly, and it was because they used to eat there as a kid. They had very fond memories of it, and when they saw that the hat came up for sale, they're like, we need to jump on this because we need to preserve this location. So they bought it, and they've I know that there's like maybe 5 or 6 different locations that they have, and they all they're doing pretty well because those locations are still open. But I don't know if they're wanting to expand any further than where they already are.
I saw that the location where Tui's was for 30, 40, 50 years. I don't know. The building has been demolished, and they must be rebuilding there at Atlantic and Huntington and Garfield.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard of Tui's or been to Tui's?
I heard about it on this podcast.
Yeah?
I had never heard of it.
Oh.
I think I don't remember the guest. I know he was. I believe he was a restaurant owner that was on it, and it's been mentioned a few times. But I think you had someone that worked there.
Yeah, I do remember. Yeah,
Ryan Lopez from Lord Empanada.
Yes, you're right.
Yes. Yeah. That's where I heard of Tui's, and then I saw the the little logo and stuff, and I saw that it's been relocated now. So that's definitely a place I need to go pay a visit.
Home of the Stinko.
Yeah, that's what made me laugh about the logo with the guy with the clothespin on his nose.
On his nose.
Well, Javier, we ask each guest to bring an item of significance with them. What did you bring with you today?
So I brought this little keepsake here. My mom bought this for me when I graduated from high school. And then my dad wrote inside of it. Oh, wow. So my dad passed away in 2006. So he didn't get to see me graduate from UC Merced, or I also have a master's degree from UCLA. So he didn't get to see that. So this is one of the few things that I have that still has his handwriting on it, and literally just says adelante, which means, forward. So yeah, my mom bought it. My dad wrote in it, and it's one of the few things that I still have of his that have his handwriting. So it's very special to me.
Yeah.
Wow, awesome. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that in. Thank you for sharing that story.
What's your degree in from UCLA?
I have a master's degree in moving image archive studies. So I'm an archivist. I work at a studio in Hollywood.
Oh, that's your job?
That's my day job, yeah. So that's why I'm so good at research. The historian and the archivist.
Oh, yeah. What do you archive?
So the funny thing is I went to school to learn how to archive film, like actual tangible film, and I work with all digital files. So everything I archive is files. But it's basically like, when you see any movie on like Netflix or streaming sites, that you can pick like subtitle languages, or you can change the audio language on that. All those files, my team are the ones that validate those files before they get put into our database. So, we make sure that if a file comes through and says it's, Brazilian Portuguese, we play it. I don't speak Portuguese, but I know what it sounds like. So if I play it and it doesn't sound like that, I might flag it back to the person and say, hey, you said it was Portuguese, but it kind of sounds like it might be something else. Or same thing with like the picture text language. Sometimes they'll say, oh, it's it's Japanese, and then we'll open it and then it's Cyrillic. We're like, that's not. I don't know if it's Ukrainian or Russian, but it's definitely not Japanese. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, you're pretty knowledgeable then. I have a question. A lot of TV shows from the past, the film is gone. I don't think you could even get old Johnny Carson shows. I'm not sure. But today, is everything that's created, does it stick around forever now?
Well, so it worries me as an archivist, just because we're really reliant on digital media. I've always been a fan of physical media, especially like film. Like if you have a canister of film and you put it under the right conditions, it could last, decades. You have some films that are over 100 years old that still exist, but a hard drive can fail after 5 or 10 years. But right now what we do a lot is we have multiple copies, and then we're always constantly sort of, whenever the newer technology comes on, we migrate all our data to the new format. So we do have a lot of checks and balances.
You have to keep moving.
Yeah, you have to keep moving it forward. Yeah, because you can't. So it's sort of like if you had like a cassette tape, and then when you had a CD, you changed it to CD, and then from CD you changed it to MP3, and then so forth. We're constantly having to do that, but there's nothing like film, like the original negative, to go back to when you're trying to do something like a new 4K release or things like that. They always go back to the original film, because that is the highest quality thing that you can have.
So like, I'm a big Beatles fan, right? So when they do these new, Beatle releases, are they going back to still the original 1964 version, or are they working off of something later?
So usually what they do now is they'll scan the original negative, like the actual film, and they'll create something that's called a digital internegative, which is like the digital equivalent of the film negative. And then that way, because every time you put film through a projector or whatever, it causes wear and tear on it. So in order to avoid that, they'll usually scan it and then they'll work off the digital part of it to do all the other work. But they will go back to the original. If they have the original negative, they'll go back to it. They'll scan it, and then any other work they do, they work off that digital file that gets created from that scan.
Javier, I noticed you also have pins on your jacket, and I'm assuming they have some meaning to you.
Yeah.
Would you like to talk about them?
Yeah, no, it's just my wife told me stop buying coffee mugs when we go places. So now I do T-shirts and pins. So these are, got the Mount Wilson Observatory. I love our state bird, so the quail, the California quail. So I got this here. And then just places I've been to, like Pioneer Town, Mount Whitney. The cabins on dinosaurs are very near and dear to me. And then over here I have Bigfoot, because Bigfoot's, this legend is very prevalent in Humboldt County, so I went up there. And then I have some pins here from Solvang and the Crystal Palace, Buck Owens in Bakersfield. I'm a huge Buck Owens fan. And then the bell for the rain cross from Riverside. So I alternate. This is like the jacket I wear when I go to these different places, and when I get new pins, I'll swap them out. So I got a whole bunch of pins at home, and my wife's happy because they're contained and sort of taking up space in the shelves.
Wow, the Cabazon dinosaurs! I haven't heard about that, or I haven't thought about that in some time. Weren't they in like a movie, an '80s movie? I mean, sure they were in a lot of movies, but I remember like a child being.
Yeah, so they were in a movie, and the name escapes me now, but it's, they were in a movie about like a Super Nintendo like tournament.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
I can't remember the name of the name. The name escapes me, but yeah, you're right. Yeah, he it's like a Nintendo tournament. And he has like memories of the dinosaurs, and at the end he ends up going back to dinosaurs.
That's right. Exactly right. Oh no, now that's gonna bother me.
So I drive through Cabazon every week, and I do kind of remember seeing dinosaurs. They're still there?
Yeah, they're still there.
Right off the freeway?
Yeah, they're right off of the freeway, just near the Morongo. I think it's the Morongo Casino.
Yeah,
like
Morongo
right
Casino.
Before the Morongo Casino.
Yeah. Okay. So it's just a big park with dinosaurs, huh?
Yeah. So it started because this the guy who built the first dinosaur, he used to work for Knott's Berry Farm, and he did all their. Have you ever been to Knott's Berry Farm and you sit at the benches with the two cowboys on either side of you, or the two dancers or things like that? He sculpted all those things for Walter Knott, and then he bought that piece of land in Cabazon, and he wanted to build. He built a diner, and he wanted to call attention to the diner, and he was like, "I'm going to build a dinosaur." So he built. They call it I think it's named Dinny the dinosaur, which is the Brontosaurus. So he built it. He put a little like museum inside of it with like little artifacts that he collected, and it would charge people like a nickel to come inside and see it. But the big thing was to draw people into the diner, and then he started building the T-Rex later on. He built that, and then he had plans to have like a whole thing with like a saber-toothed tiger and a woolly mammoth, but he passed away before he could finish that. So now it's just the two dinosaurs, and somebody actually built like a little park behind it where they have other dinosaur statues, but they're much smaller scale than the big ones that are on the side.
Javier, you mentioned the name of that type of art. What is it again?
Programmatic architecture.
Programmatic architecture. Oh, so I guess those dinosaurs are the same, right?
Yeah. So programmatic architecture basically is where a building is made to look like what's sold inside, or it illustrates the name or the theme of like the building. So technically, like something like Randy's Donuts, people try to say, oh, it's not really programmatic architecture because the donut is on top of the building, but the whole point of it is to draw attention, because that's how it came about. Is back in the 20s when car culture was taking off, especially here in California, they were like, we need to draw these drivers into our restaurant. So instead of putting a sign out, have the whole building be the sign, So that's where you started having all these people build like the Bulldog Cafe and the Giant Tamale and all these kind of things. And it was meant to draw attention to the
Pink's
business.
Like that?
No, Pink's would not be considered.
It's not a hot dog?
Well, it's. I think you're thinking of Tail of the Pup. Tail of the Pup is a hot dog.
Oh, okay. Okay, I might have been there. No, Tale of the Pup. Exactly. I just saw it on a Columbo show the other day. Columbo was eating a hot dog at Tale of the Pup.
Tale of the Pup, and it's still there. They saved it. They had moved it around. It was actually at the Valley Relics Museum in Van Nuys for a bit, and then there's a really great group called the 1941 group that does a lot of restaurants, but they're really into preservation. So they got to Tell the Pup, they reopened it, and so now that stand just sells like T-shirts and stuff, and the restaurant's in the back, but the building is there. They also did Idle Hour in the Valley, which is this big whiskey barrel shaped building that they preserved, and then even the Highland Park Bowling, which is like a really old bowling alley, they maintained the old school look of it. So they're really big into, obviously they're in it to make money, but they also like to preserve. They're not into tearing things down and building something new.
What was the height of that kind of architecture?
Programmatic architecture's height was the 20s and 30s. After the World War II, like in the 40s and 50s, all that kind of stuff started to go away. We started getting into like
Google,
Googie.
Or Googie, Googie,
It was all, because it was a space age, so everyone was obsessed with the space age. So you went into Googie, which I also love.
I do too. Yeah, are there any examples of Googie architecture in like the San Gabriel Valley?
I would think, I'm pretty sure it is. I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Norms is not.
Because Norms is considered Googie, but I don't think the only Norms that I can think of in the San Gabriel Valley is the one that's in Covina, and that one was actually a Steak Corral, which was a restaurant that I covered in my.
There's one in El Monte, or no? Okay, maybe I'm mistaken.
Yeah, but they definitely do try to pay homage to the Googie architecture, but off the top of my head, I can't think of a Norms here that has that, or any of the buildings. But I'm sure they're around.
Was that Norms also that had the windmills?
Oh, that's Denny's.
Well, Denny's now has right there in Arcadia.
Yeah,
but that was it was a Tiny Nailers, I think is what it was called. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, I actually did a video on that.
On Tiny Nailers?
Oh, no, on Vandycamps. So before it was Tally Nailers.
Vandycamps was also windmill.
So before it was Denny's, it was Tiny Nailers.
Yeah.
And then before that, it was Vandycamps. So that used to be a Vandycamps coffee shop.
Oh, okay.
Is Vandycamps the Denny's in Arcadia, that big windmill thing also?
Yeah, that used to be the Vandycamps. That's actually the only one that remains that's still fully intact, because they had coffee shops all over California. Most of them centered here in Southern California, but that's the only one that still remains that has the windmill. And luckily, they convinced Denny's to preserve it, because they were they just wanted to tear it down, build something new. And so they got it working again, and they were closed for a bit because there was a fire, I think, in 2021 or 2022.
Yeah, they were closed for quite some time.
Yeah, but I drove by about a month ago, and it was reopened, and the windmill was spinning. So I was happy to see that.
Yeah, it's so.
The movie is The Wizard.
The Wizard, yes, The Wizard.
Yeah. Well, Javier, we're going to take a quick break here, but when we get back, I want to know more about what you have in store for Californiography and your podcast. But let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
At Wormuth Law, they believe that just because you speak a foreign language, come from a different culture, or simply don't know how to navigate the legal system, that should not prevent you from compensation from injury or receiving benefits. Their multicultural staff have been helping SGVers like you for over 38 years. Visit law888.com or call them at 626-784-7017 and tell them you heard about them on this podcast.
All right, we're back with Javier Howser. Javier, before the break, we were talking about this architecture that you seem to really love and have a lot of knowledge about. I'd like to get into what you have in store for the future of Californiography and some ideas that you're maybe thinking of. But before that, as you know, when we come back from the break, we like to ask these questions from this card deck, icebreakers. So you can choose to answer it or not. It's just to get to know us a little bit better. So here we go. What's something you did as a child that your parents still retell the story about?
My mom. So when I was a kid, I had trouble pronouncing certain things. So if you remember Pioneer Chicken,
Yes.
I loved Pioneer Chicken, but I couldn't say Pioneer Chicken, so I used to say Piolín Chicken. And my mom to this day, whenever we drive by the Pioneer Chicken that's in Huell Heights, she's like, "You remember when you were a kid, you used to call it?" And so I'm like, "Yes, Mom, yes." So yeah, that's one thing that she's constantly bringing up.
My mom would always share the story of me crawling out of the crib, and like somehow she would say like, "Yeah, I put the crib in this area, and somehow he moved the crib over to the bed and crawled out of the crib onto the bed and then crawled out." And she would say like, "How did you figure this out?" As like, I don't know, I was maybe 2 years old or something, but she would often tell that story about me.
I can't think of anything I did right now, but the story is of what they did, and they left me at a gas station and drove off.
Oh no!
Yeah, and then about a half hour later, they discovered I wasn't in the car.
Oh wow, a real Home Alone moment.
Well, the funny thing is, like my brothers and sisters, my brother and sisters were in the car, and they knew I wasn't there, but they didn't say anything.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
Different times, huh?
Definitely.
Well, if you're listening or watching online, what's something you did as a child that your parents still retell the story about? Let us know in the comments, and we'll be sure to share it on a future episode. So, Javier, you also have your own podcast, and is it called Californiography?
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about that.
So I started doing the podcast to sort of expand on some of the videos because, the videos are 3 minutes, 4 minutes long. So I want to go deeper into that. I haven't had an episode out since like July, but I'm getting ready to start doing it again. Definitely want to do more interviews with people. Doing the Randy's Donuts video, I actually met someone else who's also obsessed with Randy's Donuts and the history of the Big Donut Drive-In. So we're working to get together at the end of April to film, to record an episode where we talk about the history of the Big Donut Drive-In and our obsession with trying to figure out all the locations. Again, it's one of those things where it's very hard to pinpoint the years that the locations were open. And, a lot of people are like, who cares? But this guy cares. So I was like, let's do a podcast episode where we talk about the history of the Big Donut Drive-In. But and then as far as like the videos are concerned, right now I'm currently working on one on Baker's, which is a chain in the Inland Empire.
yeah.
Oh,
And the story is just fascinating because the Neil Baker is like the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon with like fast food, because he has a connection to the McDonald's brothers. He was best friends with Glenn Bell, who started Taco Bell. He employed Ed Hackbarth, who went on to found Taco Bell. John Gallardi, who founded Wiener Schnitzel. So he kind of had like indirect and direct connections with all these like fast food titans that came out of the Inland Empire, and the chains remain locally. Like there's no restaurants outside of the Inland Empire. It's just 39 restaurants that are in San Bernardino and Riverside. But he was always happy to maintain the chain local because he was claustrophobic. He didn't like to fly, so he's like, just keep everything close to home. He's like, I'm making enough money, I don't need to expand on that. So that's one that I'm working on. And then I have a long list of ideas, mostly centered on Southern California, but I would love to get down to San Diego and do a couple. I did one video on down in San Diego, and I kind of want to go and do a little more. I haven't done Orange County yet, so Orange County is something else that I'm trying to figure out, an angle, something that I can do in Orange County. But, it's a labor of love. I'm doing it on my own dime, so sometimes it's kind of hard to get out to these places. And then also the research takes a lot of time. So, I wish I could just churn them out. But sometimes it takes, 20, 24 hours of researching and filming and editing to put one of these together. So, but there's definitely a lot of things in the pipeline, but Baker's is the next one coming out.
So are you mainly a YouTube show then?
I post on YouTube and I post on social media as well. So I post my videos on TikTok and Instagram and on YouTube, and then the podcast is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all those kind of places. But yeah, definitely what I post on YouTube, I always tell people like I prefer YouTube because I film in the horizontal sort of landscape mode. I'll edit the videos for social media and like in the vertical mode, but there's so much stuff that gets cut out because you're not in the landscape. So if you really want to see the cool stuff, you have to watch it on YouTube.
yeah. Well, I'm curious. Is there Baker's in Pasadena?
No.
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 What is Caro's, I think, shut down in Pasadena.
Yeah,
right?
it was on Lake. There was one on Lake. There was one in Arcadia. And you might even be thinking of Baker's Square.
Oh, that's what I'm thinking
Yeah.
of. Okay.
There
that's separate.
was, I don't know if there still is a Baker's Square, but there used to be a chain called Baker's Square.
And they were similar to like Marie Callender's, right?
Yeah,
like you walk in and there's like a pie display.
That's right, yes.
Oh, okay.
And similar to Caro's and Marie Callender's, yeah. Marie Callender's was always a favorite of mine, and I hate to see that chain fade away, which it is.
And it's another place that was, if I'm not mistaken, started here in California as well. It's like a California, it's a California chain. Yeah. I love Marie Callender's chocolate satin cake and pie and the strawberry pie.
Yeah,
like the two favorites. Yeah,
you can still get a good turkey dinner, pot roast.
Yeah.
Javier, if you could be the modern day Huell Howser, is that something that would appeal to you? Would you like to replace him in that role and go out to all these places and discover the history, and have your camera guy or camera woman with you? Is that something you dream of or aspire to?
I mean, definitely, I would love to do that. I don't know that I would ever replace him because he's the GOAT, and even the things that I do, I always say I'm keeping his spirit alive because people tell me, because I don't try to imitate him. I'm sort of keeping his spirit alive while doing my own thing. But yeah, if somebody wants to pay me to travel and film and interview people, definitely, because that's what at the core is. I'm trying to keep his legacy of wanting to get people excited about California and the fascinating things that are in their own backyard. And that's what I'm trying to do with this, is get people, because I love it when somebody says, hey, every time my city's in the news, it's always something negative, and the video that you posted brings like a positive light. And I'm proud to say that my city is the location of that place. Or I had no idea that this was there. Now I'm gonna go look in the library or look up what else is there. Like that was his. He always said that was his. The whole point of his show is like it was two things. It was one, to show people, oh look, this is the Golden Gate Bridge, or this is this. But the other part of it was to get people excited about California, and that's what I'm trying to do.
And it sounds like that's the response that you're getting from people about your videos and your content. Is that right? Yeah.
People are really like it. They'll say, oh yeah, I love the fact that you call yourself Huell Howser, and then like I said, just trying to keep his spirit alive. And I rarely get any negative feedback on the videos. Everything's really positive. And like I said, it's mostly people saying, I forgot about that place, or thank you for highlighting this because, it was such an important part of my childhood. And, now instead of trying to explain to somebody, I could just point to your video and let them know, what this place was all about.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Javier, we're going to move on to the final segment of the show where we get to learn a little bit more about you and what you like in the San Gabriel Valley. Well, Javier, you're no stranger to the SGV3, as you mentioned that you've been a fan of the show or listened to it. So now it's your turn. This is where we learn your 3 favorite or most memorable places or experiences in the San Gabriel Valley. So, Javier, what is number 1?
So number 1 has to be the Rose Parade, because I love the fact that it was started by people who had moved from the East Coast to rub California's great weather in the face of their family and friends back east. Because basically they were like, hey, it's winter back east. Everyone's digging themselves out of snow. We got sunshine. Our oranges are about to come in. They're like, let's hold a celebration and tell everybody about our paradise. So I love that. That's why it started, is as a way to kind of rub it in the East Coast people's face.
I never heard that story before.
Yeah. It was at the core of it. It was that. It was them saying, hey, we have such great weather. Let's tell the world about this paradise that we're living in.
Awesome. And what's number 2?
Number 2 has to be Mary's Market in Sierra Madre, which is a city. I'm hoping it was an original one. No one's mentioned Sierra Madre on the show. Mary's Market is my favorite place to get breakfast. One of my favorite places to get breakfast. It used to be a meat market up in Sierra Madre. It's like from like the 1920s. And then eventually this lady named Mary bought it in the 60s. And she kind of sort of became like the mother of the valley. They called her the mother of the canyon, because she would feed people if you were in need. She would feed you. The restaurant's been through many different owners, but currently now 2 former employees own it. and they have really good eggs Benedict, really good coffee, and you can't beat the view up there either.
Where is it exactly?
It's in Sierra Madre. I can't. It's one of those places. It's really hard to find because once you punch in the directions to it, the way to find it, there's painted rocks on the street that point you towards the place. But it's in Sierra Madre, up going into at one of the trails that goes up into the canyon. But I don't know exactly. I can't tell you exactly the street.
So I've seen something like there's a meat market. I'm going up Baldwin, going north on Baldwin, and before I get to, that intersection where all the businesses are, it's on the right hand side, the market, and I've seen it, but I never knew that there was a restaurant there.
No, so actually Mary's Market is a little bit further up. It's like in the middle of like residential areas.
Oh, really?
So as you're going into past what you're talking about,
okay,
going up into the canyon, you literally go into a neighborhood, and it's just this, like, it used to be a neighborhood market, and now it's this neighborhood restaurant.
Wow.
And it's right in the middle of like residential, but you're up in the canyon, so it's pretty awesome.
Wow. How many tables would you say they have there?
They probably got like 4 tables.
Oh, it's really small.
Yeah, it's really small.
Wow. Awesome.
They have 4 tables inside, and they have like maybe 5 or 6 tables outside. But yeah, it's very small.
Oh, and because you're still going up, and now I can see what you mean about the view.
Yeah, it's great. It's the the trees and hearing the birds singing while you're drinking your cup of coffee is great.
Wow, awesome. Yeah, that was an original. So, okay, and Javier, what's number 3?
Number 3 I have to give a shout out to the often imitated but never duplicated In-N-Out, Baldwin Park. I love that In-N-Out because they have the replica of the original stand just a stone's throw from where it was originally located on one side of the freeway, so you can see how this tiny little 100 square foot shack turned into the behemoth that is In-N-Out. And then after you see that, you can go on the other side of the freeway, go grab a double, check out the company store. They have their In-N-Out University there. And then they have a whole complex down the street where they have a lot of like their trucks and things like that, their corporate offices. So yeah, shout out to In-N-Out because everybody wants to be In-N-Out.
In-N-Out catches a lot of flack from visitors who are like, oh, this is not a great burger, or they have all these other burgers. Yeah, I really like it, the food, but the simplicity of it, but they're just so organized, right? And yeah. I've never had a bad experience with a worker there. Never. They're always very pleasant, very helpful. The places are always immaculate. Like, that's also a huge part of In-N-Out for me anyway.
Yeah, you know what you're getting, and it's very well trained personnel. And I had my double meat last night, no cheese, just in case you wanted to know. But I eat it In-N-Out all the time. I just consider it like good quality food, to be honest.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Javier, what do you like to get there?
So my go-to order lately has been a double single, which is two meat patties and 1 slice of cheese. Get it animal style, but with whole grilled onions and raw onions and chopped chilies. And then get the fries animal style, well done, and then the Neapolitan shake.
Wow, they have a Neapolitan shake. That's off the menu, right?
Yeah, that's secret menu.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what's cool about In-N-Out is like you don't feel like a jerk for having all these special modifications, right? Because that's sort of their thing.
What about you? What's your go-to?
I get a triple double protein style, animal style, fries extra well.
Wow. You can just say it like that, and they know exactly.
Yeah. Well, if you know the lingo too, like it helps, right? So fry extra well. That's because I just listened to how they put in the order. Yeah.
What is animal style?
So animal style is they mustard fry the patty. So they get the patty, they put mustard on it. When they put it on the griddle, and then it has extra spread and grilled onions.
Oh, okay. I'm going to get that from now on.
Yeah. And you can also get your fries animal style, which is they get slices of cheese and they put them on top of the fries. They let the cheese melt and then they throw spread and grilled onions on top of that too.
Okay. Wow. You guys really know how to order. So every time I order, it's like this. I want double meat, no cheese, and add ketchup. And then they always ask me, do you want the sauce also? So I'm just saying add ketchup. I'm not saying take away sauce, but they always ask that question.
Well, here's why I say fries extra well, because because there's like lines, and so I think that they don't really do the fries well, crispy enough. Well, they never do, right? But if you say fry extra well, then they make sure, and then so when I get them, they're crispy.
I know the 2 In-N-Outs where there is never a line.
Uh-oh.
And I go to both of them.
Don't say it, because
you can let us know off the air.
Oh, actually, I know one. You know one. You go ahead. Which ones are they?
There's the one on Colima in Rowland Heights, and the one in which is the one I went. And then last night I went to. Let me think what city this might be. It's on Yucaipa Boulevard. Yucaipa.
Mm. Yes, Colima, almost never a line, and the other one is in. It might be El Monte. It's on Lower Azusa, across the street from the bowling alley. Do you know that one? Mm-mm. Almost never a line there.
What bowling alley?
I'm not sure. I think they're called action lanes or something.
It's on Lower Azusa?
I think so.
In what city?
Maybe that's El Monte or Temple City.
Oh.
Yeah, it's almost never a line. Anyway, now hopefully it stays that way. Well, Javier, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story with us. If people want to get in touch with you or check out your content, what's the best way to do that?
So you can check me out on Instagram, YouTube at Californiography. And then I also have a website now. So you go to foohowser.com. So FOO, Howser, HOWSER. And you go on there. I've done write-ups on all the videos that I've done. I also have a map where I mapped all the locations I've been to. So you can kind of click and see where Huell Howser's been.
How many places?
I think I've done 37 videos, I think, the last count. Yeah, but I've definitely been to more places because some of the videos have like 5 or 6 locations. Like the Big Donut Drive-In, I went to 5 locations, so I put those all on the map.
And is your wife happy during these times? Like, is she pleasant, like, to be your cameraman and do all this stuff?
Yeah, no, she's my greatest supporter. Like, my wife Ellie, like I love her. She's my best friend. Yeah, she's not that enthusiastic to go on these things, but she likes to support me. But especially if we go somewhere because she really likes architecture and like interior design, so we go somewhere that has, architecture of the time or like pieces that are inside the house of the period. She loves to go to those kind of places, but she supports me, so she puts up with it.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you, Javier, for coming on the show. We do appreciate it. Well, there you go. Another episode in the books. Thank you for staying with us here. It's really cool to see the San Gabriel Valley through someone else's eyes and see what they have a passion for, what they're sharing with the community. If you haven't already, I would really recommend checking out Huell Howser Californiography, his content either on his website or online on YouTube or on Instagram. One of the things that really drew me into his content was a piece that he did on a steakhouse in Whittier. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. He's there. He's sharing all this unique facts and information and history about the place. And I can really see now, as he's shared, the response from the community saying that shining a positive light on something in their community really feels good. So thank you, Javier, for the work that you do. Well, that's our episode for this week. If you'd like to check out more of our content, don't forget to check out our website, mysgv.net. We also have merchandise there that's on the way to the studio, so we can have some pictures for you. You can see that. But if you want to check out the shop, it's on our website too. If you like this kind of content, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And until next week, we'll see you then.
Thank you for joining us on the My SGV podcast. Check out more of our content on our website, mysgv.net. This show was produced by Russell Mono and edited by Victoria Allers of Kind Monster Productions. If you'd like to join us next week as we capture and share more stories from our diverse community, feel welcome.
Nice mother. No, kind mother.